Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you and welcome everyone to the 7th week of Basic Translations course. And today we are going to talk about variation of translation techniques. Before we are going through the material, let me introduce our presenters today. So the first material will be presented by Izatun Nabila, then continue with Aurelia Putih Imani. After that, closed by Safia Karima. So there are three approaches of translation techniques. The first is come from Russia. It is brought by Switzer and Resker. They introduced two different ideas about translation techniques. The first one is translations as analogy, and the second one is translation as adequacy. Then the second idea, Switzer and Resker divided again into four different categories that you can see in the slide. And the second approaches come from America. It is discovered by Maloney. Maloney found 5 different ideas about translation techniques that you can see in the slide. The first idea, the second idea, third, and the fourth idea, Maloney divided again into 2 subcategories in each idea. And then the last approaches come from Canada. This approach is really general in use. It is discovered by Finney and Darbonet. They introduced 7 different categories of translation techniques. There are borrowing, calque, literal translation, transposition, modulation, equivalence, and adaptations. From those 3 approaches, we're just going to talk about Canada approaches because it is generally in use in our course. So let's continue. So these are our content of topics. Today we are going to talk about Canada approaches on translation techniques by Vinay and Darbonet. The first, second, and the third topic will be presented by Izatun Nabila. The fourth and fifth topic will be presented by Safia Karima, and the last 3 topics will be presented by Aurelia Putih Imani. Hi everyone, this is Nabila, and firstly we are going to talk about borrowing techniques. Borrowing used the same word or expression in original text in the target text. So this technique used because the letter has a gap in its lexicon. And by the way, the word or expression borrowed is usually written in italic. So actually, in this sense, it is a translation technique that doesn't actually translate. For example, Ibu menggunakan mixer untuk membuat kue ulang tahun. So the word mixer is actually borrowed from English. Jadi kata mixer di contoh tersebut harus menggunakan huruf italik karena dia meminjam dari bahasa Inggris. And actually, borrowing is not always from English. Ada juga borrowing yang berasal dari bahasa Prancis. For example, pembangunan metro memakan biaya yang tidak sedikit. The word metro in this sentence berasal dari bahasa Prancis. That actually has meaning jalur kereta di bawah tanah. So that's why the word metro in that sentence has to written in italic. So borrowing technique has 2 categories. The first one is naturalized borrowing. This technique makes the borrowing adapted with the target language. So in naturalized borrowing, we not 100% copied the SL. So for example, in English we have institution and we adapted the word into Indonesia, it becomes institusi. And we have transmission in English, and we adapt it into Indonesia, become transmisi. So that's it. And the second category is pure borrowing. This technique doesn't change the original word form. So actually pure borrowing is we 100% copied the SL word. For example, we have sandwich in English, and in Indonesia we also have sandwich with the similar word and object. In Indonesia we also have pizza that actually borrowed from English, pizza. The next technique is calque. This technique borrowing a word or phrase from SL by literal word for word translation. The translated phrase is defined in TL. So for example, in English we have skyscraper, and in Indonesia we have pencakar langit. In sentence, each residency was divided into assistant residencies. In Indonesia, it becomes setiap keresidenan dibagi ke dalam pemerintahan asisten keresidenan. Jadi poin penting di teknik ini adalah hasil translasi dari bahasa sumber adalah sudah paten. Maksudnya di Inggris kita memiliki skyscraper dan Indonesia memiliki pencakar langit. Jadi hasil translasi dari skyscraper sudah pasti adalah pencakar langit, dan itu tidak akan bisa berubah. The next technique is literal translation. This translation means a word-for-word translation, achieving a text in the target language which is as similar as its SL syntax. This technique translates a sentence without looking at how the words are used together in a phrase or sentence. And according to Vinay and Darmalet, a literal translations can only be applied with languages which are extremely close in cultural terms. So for example, there are 3 boys and 3 girls in group A. In Indonesia, it becomes ada 3 anak laki-laki dan 3 anak perempuan dalam kelompok A. Lalu apa bedanya sih antara teknik calque dan literal? Dalam teknik calque, hasil translasi sudah paten. Dan hasil translasi tidak memperhatikan struktur dari SL. Seperti contohnya tadi, normal school menjadi sekolah normal, di mana head dalam phrase itu berpindah tempat, yang awalnya di belakang menjadi di depan. Sedangkan untuk literal translation, struktur dari bahasa sumber harus tetap dipertahankan. Seperti dalam contoh, there are 3 boys and 3 girls in group A. Hasil translasi dari kalimat tersebut tetap mempertahankan struktur dari bahasa sumber. Dan untuk pernyataan Vinay dan Darbanet yang menyatakan a literal translation can only be applied with languages which are extremely close in cultural terms, yang artinya teknik literal ini hanya bisa diaplikasikan dalam 2 bahasa yang memiliki kultur yang mirip atau yang sama atau yang dekat lah. Kenapa seperti itu? Karena jika kedua bahasa tidak memiliki kultur yang dekat, maka hasil translasinya akan jauh dari konteks yang dimaksudkan.